Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining me. We're going to be talking about the truth of stress and the path to happiness. Now, this is not a system where you need to learn a bunch of things you didn't already know. What we're here to do is figure out exactly what is causing stress in your life. Figuring out exactly what you need to do for you to remove it. I know you can be happy. I know you can do this. It doesn't take being special or gifted. It just takes understanding what needs to be done and doing it. You don't have to add a lot of excess routines to your life. You just need to take what you're already good at, refine those things that you're good at in order to get the results of happiness. Now, most likely you've already learned modalities, you've practiced meditation, you've done psychotherapy, you've done something in your life to try to fix it, but it's not going away. The reason you haven't been able to succeed is either because we haven't done something correctly or we're not looking at it correctly. Now, join me over the next little bit while we look at exactly what the truth of stress is and what really constitutes a path to happiness. Thank you for joining me. Let's have a good time. To summarize, the truth of stress and the path to happiness is: stress is when the body, the energies, and the mind are out of balance, outside of your personal tolerances. The path to happiness is developing the skills that you need to remove stress, to reveal the happiness that's already there. The truth of stress and the path to happiness. As we go through this, we're going to look at each word, unpack its meaning, find a definition that actually does something, that allows us to target the problems in our lives and really do something about it. That's actually where the title comes from. It's the truth of stress and the path to happiness. That is, what stress really is as it actually exists in your life. And what can we do to it? What can we do with it that produces or uncovers happiness? Now, in my life, in all of my work with people over the last 23 years, the key things that's always happened is there's two problems: technical issues and definition issues. That means either you're doing it wrong or you're thinking about it wrong. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how are we thinking about the problem? What does truth mean? What is stress? We've got all of these definitions and all these things we've been told throughout our lives. And if any one of them would have been truly valid, it would have done something for us. We would have been able to look at it and very easily apply things we know to solve it. But it hasn't worked like that. Which means either we're doing it wrong or we're thinking about it wrong. So let's start right here with truth. Now, this isn't going to be a lot of definitions or knowledge that you need to collect, things you need to know. This doesn't work that way. These definitions that we're going to come to are definitions that lead immediately to things that you can do. Okay, well, let's look at the word truth. In our language, the way we normally define it, truth is just another fact. Oh, this is the truth of this and the truth of that. But truth doesn't have an opposite. There's not truth and false. It's true and false. So truth doesn't have an opposite. Truth can only be obscured, misunderstood. Truth is what's actually there, no matter what you call it, no matter what you think about it. It's that which actually is there. True describes, well, truth. If you walk up to an object and you came at it from different angles. You could describe it in different ways, and each one of them will be true, but none of them encompass the entirety of the object, the truth of the object, the thing that's actually there. There's a wonderful story from history where 4 blind sages, or blindfolded sages, were walked up to an elephant from different directions. One to its tail, one to its leg, one to its side, and another one to its trunk. Each one of them felt a different piece. The one by the tail said, "Oh, it feels like a very thick broom," because a little poofy tail. Yeah. The one by the leg, "Oh, this is the trunk of a massive tree." The one by the side of the elephant said, "It's like a giant wall." And the one by the trunk, "It's a flexible hose." Each one of those descriptions are true, but none of those descriptions tell you what it is, not something you can do with it. True does not always mean accurate. Now, there are lots of things that are inaccurate and very true. Let's see, if you were to take one of my favorite descriptions, totally inaccurate, but extremely true to the symbolism. Take light, right? Our light bulbs in the ceiling. When you flip the light switch, electricity, like water, rushes through the pipes in the walls that we call wires. That electricity moves all the way until it gets to the light. When it gets to the light, it goes through a little coil and it sprays out light into the room like a sprinkler. Now, isn't that true? You couldn't build a light bulb with it. You couldn't understand, the engineering principles behind electricity. But as far as the correct symbol that you need to understand to go, oh yeah, electricity, it moves through and it powers things and then it moves back out like water. That's true. Wholly inaccurate. The truth about electricity is how it actually functions. Now, the more accurate you become with your true statements, the better you can use it to do things. When we look to the word truth, we're looking at the entire meaning of an object all at once. When we define an object, we exclude all other possible meanings but one. We pick out one possible meaning out of a vast multitude of meaning. So the difference between truth and true is true has its opposite of false. And one of the things about true is it's only true as long as it's accurate. The best way to describe true is it's true if it works. If you can take a statement and do something with it. If I were to say, there's 100 ways to flip a light switch, that's true. But the more accurate I can be, take your finger, put it where the switch is, flip it up or down depending on the switch. That specificity allows you to accurately. You could flip it on with your foot. You could flip it on with your elbow, like in the COVID times. It's true if it works. But the truth is what's there, no matter what you call it, no matter if you understand it or not. It's the thing that actually exists. Now let's take a look at the word stress. Now, if you were here with me, we would actually go through a little exchange where I'd ask you questions like, hey, what does stress mean to you? Now, I've done this with lots of people, and the answers are almost always the same. Oh, I have to pay my taxes. Being around people is difficult. Not getting what I want is difficult. People being born, people dying, pain, right? Headaches, losing, loss. All of these things. And one of the things I can say is, okay, I hear you, but none of those things are stress. All of those things are stressors, things that you can become stressed about. You can even become stressed about being stressed. So, stress can't be any particular thing that happens to you. It can't be any particular feeling that arises in your body. It can't be any particular negative or pleasant thought that arises in the mind. Stress has to be something not just true, but something that's actually there every time, regardless of how you think about it, regardless of how you perceive it. It has to be there every time, just like it is. Well, let's take a look at what's actually there. So let's say you've got some bad news on the phone. Somebody said something you didn't like. Maybe you lost something. Your money is in danger, right? What actually happens when you hear those things? The body starts to change. Your muscles start to tense. Your heart rate, your respiration changes. Chemicals are released. Stress chemicals. There's a strain on the body that starts to accrue. Now, strain on the body is something that we take for granted all day long. A race car driver, a baseball player, a boxer is under tremendous physical strain, but they're not necessarily unhappy or out of balance. They have a high tolerance for physical distress, which makes it bearable. But why, when we hear something like this, does the body react and become so out of balance? If you took something within its tolerance range, you can sustain strain. Like if I were to take a stick and I start putting pressure on it, it can sustain that. I let go, it flexes back to the way it's supposed to be. But if I push it beyond its breaking point, its structure collapses. Now, if you think about that in terms of the body, growth happens at the place where the strain is overwhelming, like taking something to muscular failure. That is the place that gives you the most growth. So stressors in itself is not necessarily negative. But when you've pushed a system to its limit and you go over, you are now in a situation where it's out of balance. Once the system is out of balance, then all of the negative benefits start to accrue. Stress and strain takes its toll. So if your breathing is fine, if your emotions are within the tolerance that you personally can handle, and if your muscular tension or any sense of pain that you have is within the limits you're most comfortable with, then there's no problem. It's only when the body is pushed to its breaking point, pushed too far, when you try to use it past its ability, your current ability that you've grown tolerant to. And as we get older, that tolerance decreases. It takes more effort to be able to remain in that level. Emotionally, there's two components to emotions. When we think about emotions in the normal way, we're thinking about the chemistry that's going through our body. That's very true. If you have a heightened stress response, you could draw your blood and you would be able to see in your blood there are stress hormones, right? Those things are affecting the body. Stress chemicals are actually toxic to the body. The more that they build up, the more damage they do, which is why people who stay in anxious states for long periods of time accrue diseases due to anxiety based on the chemistry. It's like if you were poisoning yourself a little every day, the body won't grow correctly. And if the body doesn't grow correctly, your tolerance decreases, your strength decreases, the copies that your cells make become degenerated, like a photocopy of a photocopy, sooner than it would normally. And disease, discomfort, disorder, out of balance takes its toll. Now, the other part of emotions is a thing that you hear about and you have definitely experienced, but you may never have thought of it this way. And that is when you feel sick or you feel happy, you don't actually feel it in your body. it seems to feel projected just slightly out front. Think about it. If you have a hurt stomach, it feels, oh, I can feel the hurt in my stomach. But when you have a sick stomach, it actually feels like it floats just outside, an inch, 2 inches outside. When you're in love, it's not just like, oh, there's a pinch in my chest. There's a bloom of emotion, and then you feel suffused by it. Not only does it surround you, but it feels like you're just a sponge soaking in it. This layer is the place where people call energy, prana, chi. This is the place where astrology actually works on. Energy works like Reiki or touch healing. All of these things, your vitality is felt here. When you're feeling good or feeling bad, you feel it at this layer. This is the layer that I'm calling the buzzy tinglies. Now, if you actually work with me in the future, that becomes a very important piece. But for now, we're just going to call it the emotional energetic layer. This is the place where you feel your feelings. Now, you know that when you're excited, this layer, this buzzy, tingly, alive layer is, oh my gosh, everything's so excited. And then when you're depressed, what you're really feeling is a lack there. There is this sense of not enough. It's a low state where too much tension and not enough tension in the body is out of balance. Too much energy is one thing and not enough energy is the other end. When your emotions are too high, let's say, oh my gosh, I've worked with people who have looked me in the face and say, I don't want to feel joy. It's too much. And every single person who said something like that is somebody who has been clinically depressed for long periods of time. They can no longer imagine what it feels like to have a normal level of energy. Now, you eat your food and you feel physically capable, right? You had some carbs, you go and lift weights, you got plenty of power. That's not the same. That's like putting gas in your car. If you have enough gas, the car runs. This is where the level of intensity goes. If you're saying, why do I have no motivation? Look at this layer and you'll see there's something missing. When you're smoking a cigarette and you're anxious, you feel it in this layer. You smoke a cigarette, you notice whole body changes. It doesn't just change in one place. The whole body seems to change. And just like with muscular tension, energetic intensity that's too high puts such a strain on the system, both physically and mentally, that you end up with all kinds of diseases based on over-energized. And as you go the other direction, as the energy goes down, it's like if you've ever experienced a brownout, not just a blackout, but a brownout. That's where there's just not enough energy to run everything. And things start to fail around you. And then the power comes back up and they come on, and it just keeps shifting on and off. When people actually live in that state, this is where we teeter with real depression. Real depression is a lack of this type of energy. This vitality is low. The strain that puts on the mind and the body are tremendous. And all of the diseases and symptoms that you see arising from depression, even when we take medications, it only pumps up the way we feel physically. And it may, for a time, make us feel energetically pumped up. But what happens every time? We grow tolerant to the medications. You're chasing something that's artificially pumping up your energy. Physically, too much strain, not enough strain. Energetically, too much energy, not enough energy. Now we look at the mind. Thinking, memory, how we perceive, and how we act, our volitions, the things we're doing on purpose. If you're not thinking enough, that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? Your energy level drops. Your physical body starts to slump and you become uncomfortable. Once you become uncomfortable in those ways, then the mind starts to complain about it. It starts liking and disliking in such a way that you drive yourself batty. If you think too long, you end up wearing your mind out, right? If you've been experiencing things and seeing and smelling, you tax yourself. You wear it out. Not enough, you go into a low state. Too much of it, you go into an overuse state. If you're picking up what I'm saying, physically, emotionally, and mentally, anytime you are plus or minus your personal tolerances, if we were to clearly define stress, when the body, the emotions, and the mind are out of balance, that is stress. And no matter how you've thought about it in the past, no matter what you've done about it, if you weren't able to see that when the body, the emotions, and the mind were out of balance, you couldn't fix it. You've heard the Buddhist axiom that all life is suffering. What are you going to do about that? If you took that as being the truth, that everything is just the worst, right? The only thing you can do about it is like, let's get out of here. Let's die and leave. That's not what it meant. The instability in life creates the stressfulness. Too much? Too little? That inherent instability causes the states of stress that you suffer from all the time. So, the truth of stress, when the body, the emotions, and the mind are out of balance for your personal tolerances, that's stress. What's happiness? All right, well, let's do the same exercise. When I ask people what happiness is, you get a lot of answers. But all those answers end up being the way that they feel, the things that they want, the things that they like, right? Feeling good is happy. Being healthy is happy. Having a calm mind is happy. But we just talked about those things. All of those things are inherently unstable. There's no way for you to keep them in balance permanently. So the type of happiness that describes is something that doesn't last. And we're looking for the truth of happiness. Something that's actually there. A happiness that doesn't go away no matter what the circumstances are. Even when you're out of balance. Which means that stress obscures happiness. Stress is like a cloud that obscures the sun. When you remove stress from the system, happiness is automatic. You don't have to make happiness. When stress isn't there, happiness is there. Now let's look at examples from your own life. There have been times when your body's healthy, there's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. And then, let's say you start to feel good. Everything's still fine. Then something comes along, and then what happens? Tragedy, upsetness, the body, the emotions, and the mind. That happiness didn't go away. Stress arose. The stressful states came up. If the stressful states were in balance, there's nothing wrong. It may not be more than like, yay, but it's not bad. It wasn't bad. The sun, let's say happiness is like the sun. There's nothing that can happen here on Earth that can actually really, truly affect the sun. Clouds come, people could put up things to obscure it, but did the sun actually ever go away? No. The truth of the sun is it's there, it shines, no matter what you do. There's a part of you that shines no matter what happens. No matter what happens in your body, no matter what happens to your emotions, and no matter what happens in your mind. You ever noticed that you're in here having this experience? Just like now, we're watching this little TV program. You're sitting there and you're seeing a screen. And you're seeing me talk to you through this device. But when you're watching this, I recorded this long ago. But you're having this first-person experience now of what's happening. You're in here seeing this subjective first-person experience. Now let's look at this. Right now, literally where I'm sitting, there's a camera. That camera is recording an image of me. This is not a window. What you're seeing of me, what's actually there, are pixels on your screen changing position, changing color. Now, the actual me, I could be long dead by now. But this image that's there is the thing that's actually there with you now. Now, if you look at our eyes, these eyes are cameras. We're not looking out a window. So at best, we can say camera, a processor, and then somewhere inside, just like with this screen, you're seeing the movie of your mind. Happiness isn't something that comes and goes. Happiness is the state when stress is not there. The truth of stress is when the body, the mind, and the emotions are out of balance, you're in a state of stress. The truth of happiness is when stress is not present, you are happy. Now, yes, we can go further existentially, but the truth of stress in your daily life is when the body, the emotions, and the mind are out of balance, you're in stress. Happiness is obscured like the sun being obscured by clouds. If you bring the body, the emotions, and the mind back into balance, the clouds depart. Happiness shines again. So now what we need to look at is how do we balance the body, the emotions, and the mind? This is the path to happiness. Now, there are many systems and many modalities that are out there. And in my personal practice, when I work with people, I take whatever religious, scientific, social background they may come from, and we tailor make the solutions for their body, their emotions, and their mind. That's not something we're going to be able to do in this short video. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some basic principles, 3 main things that we need to understand. First, there's a term, mindfulness. Has to be a precondition. So what we're going to focus on is what really makes mindfulness? How can you generate it? Because when it's not there, you're not happy. You're not productive. You're not effective. No matter what you do, you're burning candles at both ends. But when mindfulness is present, you are present, powerful, in the flow, present in the moment. And stress cannot be there when you're mindful. Mindfulness makes stress evaporate. Even tremendous amounts of stress and strain, when you're truly mindful, it's not there. So let's take a look at what mindfulness is. Mindfulness, I define with 3 words: attention, awareness, and memory. Now, these 3 things form a priorities list. These aren't just 3 things that you like, okay, I got a little attention, like a little awareness. These are things that stack as you develop them. These are skills. Attention is the ability to direct the mind and the mind's energies where you want it, when you want it. Now, we're used to attention with our eyes. When we're interested in something, we look towards that object and we can feel our attention moving towards it. Now, if we hold our attention in one place, you notice that it starts to gather a certain type of strength, and we call that concentration. That is what we're looking for. The ability to direct the mind where you want it is attention. So if you were thinking about this camera, or you're playing a video game and they put a crosshair in the center, or your mouse, where you aim that mouse, where you aim that camera, its center point is attention. The more steady attention is, the clearer the image, right? You don't want a shaky-handed surgeon. You don't want a camera that's swinging all over the place. You need it to be steady and stay exactly where you put it. If you take that as a principle, that attention, putting it where you want it, and it stays, that is our first priority. Second, awareness. So right now, on any good camera, there's an aperture. Right now, you can actually see there's one edge, there's another edge, there's the upper, and there's the lower. Now, there's lots more things in this room, but you can only see this much of it because that's how big the camera's awareness is. Its center is right here, but its awareness encompasses all of this space. Now, if you look at yourself, if you put your attention, say you're looking at the wall, and you fix a point, look, you can actually see the top of vision. And beyond the top of vision, there's blackness. Just like if you look at the top of the screen right now, boop, you hit the edge of your TV. And then maybe a little black bar. Look at your actual experience. Your attention is in one place. Follow it all the way to the top where your hand disappears, and boom, instant blackness. That is the limits of your visual awareness. Now take your hand outside of your vision's awareness, and you can feel it even if you can't see it. Your physical awareness extends out as well. So do all of your sense awarenesses. The mind has a boundary as well. Being able to open and close the aperture of your mind, your mental awareness, is the second priority. Attention, awareness. What this really does for us is, if we were looking narrowly, I can't see everything. Matter of fact, if you were trying to understand a complex system of any kind, like a puzzle, and you were only looking at one piece at a time, there's no way to put it together. It's only when you lay the pieces out and you look for the broader pattern that you understand something. So attention allows you to laser focus in on a piece, while awareness gives you this broad overview. And from there, the sensitivity of memory gives us the ability to detect change and difference from one moment to the next through time. This sensitivity of memory is called things like alertness or, your situational awareness. But really what it is your mind is taking one frame after another, and there is a subtle comparison from this frame to the last frame that lets you know the continuity of reality. If you weren't aware of the last frame, you'd be having this constant now experience and forgetting everything that passed. There would be no way to do anything without this subtle feedback. Let's think about it this way. Let's say you had a security camera and it was at 1 frame per minute. Every minute it only took one picture. Burglars could walk into your house, steal a bunch of stuff, and walk out, and it would click again, and you'd never know they were there. But you see a movie that's going at 1,000 frames a second in slow-mo, it's coming in. The sensitivity of memory is like the frame rate of a camera. The more frames per second, the more sensitivity, the more you can notice change. You could watch a fly or a bullet go through the screen, and it'd be like, wow, look at that. Where in reality, it's, right? So the sensitivity of memory. When you put these three things together, you are able to focus your attention, broaden your awareness to see an entire system, and then notice the change over time with high degree of sensitivity and awareness, alertness. What this gives us is the ability at any moment to recognize what's happening. Attention gives us a tremendous amount of control. You ever notice that when you're highly concentrated, not many things bother you? But if your awareness creeps in, you start to not notice things. Like you ever had a video game player, they're so very focused in on what they're doing. You walk up to them, you're like, hey, and they don't hear you. You tap them on the shoulder and they're like, oh my goodness. Their awareness, their concentration was extremely high. but their awareness was so small they couldn't notice anything except for the thing that they're doing. That's called one-pointed concentration. There's great benefits to one-pointed concentration. You use it all the time. Focus, high degrees of focus. But if you do it at the expense of anything else, you miss things. Now, if your awareness is all loosey-goosey and all over the place, it's like a shaking camera. You can't tell what you're seeing. Without focus, you just can't function. So, with a broad degree of awareness, what this gives us is the ability to see the larger picture. As things come into our awareness and they leave our awareness, we can notice them without the mind shaking. And then sensitivity and memory, high degrees of awareness, being able to compare to other things, it gives us the basics of analysis. You wouldn't be able to analyze things without a powerful memory. So the sensitivity memory of change and comparison, that gives us all kinds of powers. Our intellects run on that. Now, as mindfulness is conditioned, earlier I had said that there was liking, disliking, sloth and torpor, restlessness, worry, and doubt. These 5 things are called the hindrances. When these are present, you are not mindful. When you're in a state of really liking things, you're focused, right? When you're in a state of disliking things, you're focused. You're hyper-focused. You're not really paying attention. The more hyper-focused you are, the more angry or greedy or lustful you might be, the less you're paying attention to stuff. The narrowed awareness that comes along with it. Sloth is the physical slowness, and torpor is the mental sluggishness that comes along with low energy. The body's like, oh, I don't want to do anything. The mind's like, I don't want to even think anything. At its one extreme. There's no way to have a high degree of concentration and sensitivity to anything in that state. And when you're restless or worried, restlessness is this over-energized, tense, energetic state. And worry is the mind clicking off too fast about all the things it doesn't like, or, what's going to happen, catastrophizing all over the place. Restlessness and worry are an over-energized state. Doubt is a place of mental perplexity. It's like if you were to walk up to a choice, like a fork in the road, and you look left and you look right, and you're like, I don't know what to do. So you just kind of stop. You just sit down. You stop choosing. Doubt paralyzes the mind. The mind will become more and more agitated. The other hindrances arise, and you go out of balance. Physically tense and energetically too high or too low, and mind running amok. So, with attention, awareness, and memory built up together, forming mindfulness, you'll be able to notice, oh, I've become over-focused, right? If we need a balanced attention, awareness, and memory, if those start to go out of balance, we'll notice. If you hold an attention, broaden your awareness, and try to hold that, you'll notice very quickly, like when you're driving down the road, or shooting a gun, or playing a video game, as you start to weaken, you start to lose one of those 3 things. And then, as soon as that mental structure falls apart, the hindrances arise. So, one of the things we have to do is figure out how to develop attention, awareness, and memory. Now, we're not going to be able to do that in this video. However, you now understand the principles that when mindfulness is present, the hindrances are not. When the hindrances are not present, stress is not there. It doesn't matter if you have pain or tension or energy or your mind's thinking things. If that's well in balance, if you're mindful while that's happening, there's nothing wrong. It's all perfectly fine. Now, you may not be able to sustain that, but while you're mindful, there's nothing wrong. You have challenges, problems, pains, but there's nothing added. There's no mental chatter. There's no excess that's causing you the extra distress. It's like you get a cut and then you just start messing with it. Why does this hurt so much? Because you're playing with it. The hindrances in that extra part of the mind adds the extra pain. The excess that we do by not being mindful causes the excess pain, the stress that obscures happiness. So now we look at the very last piece, and this is, how do we develop those things? How do we use mindfulness? How do we take this understanding and do something with it? And that comes to stare, breathe, and relax. Every meditation system you will ever run across in your entire existence, any religious background, it doesn't matter what discipline, it doesn't matter if you're a runner, a race car driver, person, doesn't matter your occupation. Anyone who works at a high level uses stare, breathe, and relax, and has no idea, mostly, that that's what they're doing. Reading ancient texts, looking at religious rituals and rites, going through different meditation modalities. Stare, breathe, and relax is always at the heart of it. So let's take a look at it. What is stare? Well, actually, stare is mindfulness. If you have a high degree of mindfulness, your attention, awareness, and memory are lock-focused on something. It could be something physical. It could be something in your environment. Could be something physical. Could be your emotional system. Or it could be something happening in the mind. But you have locked your attention onto it, and you stay there. You can't do that without mindfulness. It won't sustain. You won't be able to sustain it over time. Breathe. Breathing physically, literally, is, right? So if I'm trying to hold something, and I hold my breath, I'm putting an excess strain. But if I breathe properly for whatever I'm doing, now there are lots of techniques, modalities, you'll find them all over the place. Now I know which ones that I use. These are the ones that have proven themselves to work for me. And depending, if I were working with you as a client, we would look at your lifestyle, the things that you do, the way that you think, and we determine the best way to breathe for you. But in general, what you're looking for is, depending on the activity, breathing needs to be comfortable, sustainable, and doing its job. You need to be getting enough. There are sometimes you can't. Okay, enough, right? And then relax. Now, relaxing at the basic level is physical. We're looking at reducing excess muscular tension, right? When you go to stand up, if you just stand there like, everything's contracted, you are using way more energy than you need to. So, hold the posture and relax everything extra. There are two people who are the absolute masters of this. One is bodybuilders. Their ability to hold extreme muscular tension, one extreme. People at the other end are living statues. The ability to sustain for extreme amounts of time, physical postures. Yogis look at a living statue like, what? Because they have an exact structure they've created, and they're holding the exact amount, no more, no less, to be able to sustain it. Well, if we are able to create a mental structure and hold it, if we're able to circulate the energies in our body, breathing, emotionally, mentally, and we're able to relax all excess energy that's not needed for the task we're doing, that is meditation. Depending on what your target is, what your goal is, the techniques vary all over the place. But fundamentally, bringing your attention, your awareness, and your memory to a target forms mindfulness. It removes the hindrances. And stress drops. Strain may not be able to get rid of it. Pain may not be able to get rid of all of it. But stress will be gone in that moment. With that, we now have a stare. We are now focused on whatever it is that we actually intend to do with our lives. We need to then circulate the energies that sustain it and relax and drain out all excess tension that's not needed. Now, if you go too low, this is one of my favorites. For any of you who might be a pilot or have ever had to work with a manual carburetor, this is one of my favorite examples. Or if you play a video game where it's your job to regulate the power or the flow of something. But when you're flying in a basic plane, manually regulate the air and fuel mixture. And the way you know you've done it is, say you take off and you push them both in. Maximum air, maximum fuel, maximum power to the engine. Roar! You take off and you start flying. Well, you're wasting fuel if you stay max speed, and you're not burning it efficiently if you have maximum amount of air. So what they train you to do is you get up to the height that you want, you level off, and then you bring the fuel back until you hit the speed you want to cruise at. So this sets our structure. We are going in a direction and an altitude and a speed. But now we've got too much air, too much or too little air in the system. So you start bringing the air back, the choke back, and as soon as you see the RPMs or the speed drop off, you know you went just a little too far. You push it right back in, and it balances perfectly. It's a wonderful skill of being able to balance your power, your structure. Just like this, we are going to be able to balance the energy we put into something, the strain and stress that we need in order to hold it, circulate the energies in our body, and drain out all of the excess so that we are the most efficient, best version of ourselves. When we need more power, when we slam it back in there, roar, full throttle. But when we don't, we pull it back to where we are the most efficient. In this way, we have now balanced the body, the emotions, and the mind. We have attention, awareness, and memory forming mindfulness. There is no stress in this moment. We're able to accomplish our goals by steadily focusing on our target, stare, circulating our energies, breathe, and pulling out all the excess, relaxing. When you do this, if you cultivate these pieces together, you'll find that happiness isn't something you have to make. Happiness is what's there. If you want to understand how to do these things, contact me. That's what I'm here for. Find me on Facebook, reach me through my email, give me a call. I'm here. This is what I want to help you do. You have problems, circumstances, and details that are specific to you. You just need to let me know your particulars. We'll apply this system, develop the correct skills that you need so that you can go about your life happy, effective, and doing what it is you're here to do, whatever that is. To summarize, the truth of stress and the path to happiness is: stress is when the body, the energies, and the mind are out of balance, outside of your personal tolerances. The path to happiness is developing the skills that you need to remove stress, to reveal the happiness that's already there. I want to say thank you. I greatly appreciate that you've taken the time. If you've made it to the end of this video, you have wonderful patience. I look forward to working with you.